together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Welcome back to The Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters. Picture this. You're deep in a fight most people never see. Maybe it's after the deployment ends. Maybe it's just another day in civilian life. But the hits keep coming. Carla Hutcherson and Brandy Mock, the voices behind Mental Perk, know what it means to sit with the hard stuff. Carla spent years in the trenches with folks at rock bottom, courtrooms, hospitals, family crises, while Brandy's used her own scars and real world business grit to make damn sure no one gets left behind in silence. Neither of them wore the uniform, but they sure as hell have stood shoulder to shoulder with those who have. Now their mission is about tearing the mask off of mental health. No sugarcoating, no shame, no anything. Whether you've carried trauma you'd rather keep locked up, or you've tired of feeling like you have to handle all of it on your own, this episode is for you. We're talking about what it actually takes to ask for help, why it's not weakness, and how finding hope isn't just feeling a feel-good slogan. It's about taking your power back. So let's get into it. Brandy, Carla, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are so excited to be here because the issues that veterans have in military is just near and dear to our hearts, and it's something that we work with every day. And we want to, we value the mental health of those who have served, and want to make sure that we're not leaving them behind.
I love that. Well, and it's also often, it's just, there's so many VSOs out there. There's so many people who claim that they help, but nobody actually really has these kind of conversations. Nobody wants to touch on what's really going on. And so I'm really excited. Two very powerful women with very different backgrounds, one in mental health and the other one in business. And I think those two things are just like destined to cross each other and really set veterans, first responders, their families up for success on the other side of getting out or walking away from that career. So just take a minute to introduce yourselves one at a time. Let people know kind of where you come from, how you got into the work that you're doing and fell into kind of the veteran space. And then we'll go from there.
So I'll start. I have always been an entrepreneur. I've always owned my own business. And I'm a firm believer that school's not for everybody. If you've got a creative mind, sometimes that's where you succeed. And so I've always been a person that just wanted to make sure I could provide for my family. And so that's what I've done. And in that process of doing what I did, I retired probably about 5 years ago from the trucking industry. I owned a business, a brokerage business. And I found and I went into training as well. And I found a lot of the guys that were coming out of the military were coming into my trade to try to figure out how to build their own book of business. And so I got to deal with a lot of veterans. Plus I was married to one for a long time. So I do.
I'm sorry.
I do get that side, the civilian side of being married to someone that served in the military, and I've seen the effects that it has taken on him too. So,
especially without treatment, because yes. I mean, many military families can stay together. It's just you have to get the treatment when mental health crisis arrive.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's where we need to do a better job of making sure those things are available. I love that the VA is making that a priority now, and so. We really are excited about the work that's happening for mental health care and, the military.
For sure. Carla, let's hear about you and how you ended up in this line of work.
So I'm Carla Hutcherson. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and basically I have just kind of worked through different forms of mental health care, whether it be a school counselor. I've been in the court systems. I've been in foster care. I've been in private practice, and I've worked in the hospital. And so all of those things together have shown me just the holes in the system and where things need to improve and how we need to destigmatize talk about mental health. We need to really focus on helping people see that they can have normal, healthy, wonderful lives, even with mental health issues. And so it doesn't have to be debilitating. And I know in some forms there are different diagnoses that are very debilitating, but there's so much help out there for so many other forms. And so we really want to make sure that we're talking about it, we're being real about it, we're showing people, hey, there's so much on the other side of this. And getting treatment is not a weakness, it's a strength. And we really want to play into that vulnerability vulnerability of getting that treatment and really focusing on your mental health care. Brandy and I met. We were working for a nonprofit that focused on suicide prevention. We met. She was on the board, and I was one of the speakers. And we just kind of we really connected during that time that we spoke to schools and different community organizations about suicide prevention. And that really is what jump-started Mental Perk.
I love it. I love to hear it. So I have to ask, of all the things you could have got involved in, why the veteran/first responder community? I mean, there's got to be a reason for both of you. I know, Brandy, being married to a veteran, seeing the toll that takes on them, particularly untreated. I'm sure you experienced this. Why I said, I'm sorry you were married to a veteran, because, and we're going to get into this, particularly with you, Carla, because you mentioned, the VA is now addressing this, but that doesn't change the stigma around somebody like me who grew up in the early 2000s Army, where I watched people's careers end for going to get mental health help. And we'll get to that in a minute. But I really do want to understand, the veteran community is not an easy community to work in. It's very, particularly like even just me being a member of that community and trying to advocate and whatnot, I have to really watch what I do, because it's really easy to burn your reputation and lose trust, but it's even harder to build the trust. So how did you guys fall into really, pursuing, helping vets and all of that, and why?
Well, I want to just say one thing, and Brandy doesn't give herself enough credit for that. But in addition to being an entrepreneur, she is a community leader. Like, she is volunteering all day long, every day, all the time. Aww. And how we really got into working with military is a lot from her volunteer work, even prior to us starting Mental Perk. She's always in there first thing she's in with firefighters. She's going to firefighter school and just trying to learn what they do, and riding around in police cars trying to learn what the SWAT team does. She's in there doing those things. And that has just opened the door to so many needs that we wanted to address. And so I'll let her kind of go into that. So this is
why I love her. But yeah, she's right. I've always had a passion for the men that have served our country, not just the military, but also our first responders. You guys are the front line to our freedom. You're the front line to our security. And we do not put enough emphasis on taking care of our own. Mm-hmm. And, we give you an assignment, you go do your job, but when you come home, no one can relate to what you've seen, what you've heard, what you've been through. And I think that my biggest struggle with seeing that is you guys are having to process stuff on the daily, constantly. So there's really no time to be able to process it when you're still, because you're trying to figure out like just how to function normal. And you don't know what normal is sometimes, right? So I am super passionate. In fact, I'll be going to Virginia Beach in September to do a log walk with Carry On, which carries a 6-foot casket. It symbolizes a casket, but it's a 600-pound log.
It's so heavy.
And you carry it. It's six guys or women that carry it. Represents a casket, and it's honoring. It's an honor walk. And I just can't put enough emphasis on what you guys have had to go through. And Carla's right. There's not enough talk about normalizing this for you guys. There's not enough coming out and rehabilitating or giving you guys an outlet to be able to talk about the things you've been through and what you've seen. And it's a daily journey for you guys. It doesn't stop. I can't tell you how many times I saw when I was married, my husband would come home from Iraq or Pakistan, and just going to church, he wouldn't stop at a stop sign, because he's used to that fast momentum of being in a very dangerous place. And we take different routes every time. And he wasn't paranoid. He was just what he'd been exposed to. He knew the world wasn't that nice.
Yeah, he was trained.
Yeah. Well, I want to break this down. You guys are running a mental health podcast. You are a licensed, therapist and, an entrepreneur. And so let's take a look at this from my perspective, right? Because I've got philosophies on this. Nobody's been able to refute these yet. In fact, I've talked to the FBI's sleep psychologist, kind of given her my ideas behind all of this. And so I'd love to get you ladies' opinion on this. But, my philosophy is, there's a certain demographic that the military targets from the day that you enter, right? Like, so most of us come from broken homes, particularly in the combat arms. We have overwhelming amounts of childhood trauma that we either never knew we had or don't know how to deal with, or haven't reached the point in our life where we understand, somebody like me who joins at 17, right? So I spent a year in delayed entry, and then, I was 6 months after my first deployment sitting outside of bars because I couldn't go and get a beer anymore, when I came home, right? So I didn't have this kind of runway that is college to get away from the authority of your parents, to go make your mistakes as a young adult in college and develop some sort of identity. My identity very quickly went from authority of my parents to authority of the Army, be the best infantryman in support of the global war on terror for the United States Army that you can be. And that was my life for 13 years. And then because I was a career guy, last year would have been my 22nd year. The original planned retirement date has just come and gone. I obviously didn't make it, but I didn't have any future forward thinking plans. And I definitely didn't know who the hell I was outside of the uniform, which to me, and all of the conversations I've had with veterans on this show, is the number one thing that we struggle with when we get out is loss of identity, closely followed by loss of purpose, closely followed by loss of community/network. Any thoughts on that? And kind of, are you seeing the same things?
I would say 100% on all of those. I think you nailed that exactly. And your statistics are correct. I think most of the people coming out are going straight from high school into the military. Now, you do have those that attend universities that are training them to be officers, or they do, part of the ROTC program or whatever that is, or the military academies. They're coming in and they're entering at higher rank. But those that are in the trenches are usually, very young souls that are, they learn to define themselves while they were in the military. They walk out of the military, and what are you left with? How do you manage this? And so, I think that they don't have the skills to do that. And I don't know that it would be great if they were being trained on the way out as well as they were trained on the way in, on how to be functional after they leave the military.
Well, and that's what I'm here working to change is there is a way, and the pushback I always get is they're not in the business of training you how to be a civilian. They're in the business of teaching you how to be a warfighter. I totally understand and respect that. And I don't come from a place of hatred or regret or anything like that. I love my time in the Army. I love that it gave me a whole lot of things that I will forever carry about me for the rest of my life. I do struggle with a lot of things. I struggle with kind of, being an adult now and realizing kind of the political puppet that I was. I struggle with, being taken advantage of, knowing that they probably recognize some of the childhood trauma issues in me and could manipulate me into doing, what they wanted to do. But as far as going to war, defending my country, the patriotism that comes with that, the skills that I learned, the leadership that I developed, I'm super grateful for all of that. And so, the fundamental breakdown is in the transition out with ACAP or whatever each branch calls it. It's a blanket fix for individual problems, and it's really easy to identify that because you can see what they focus most on is teaching you how to write a resume. And you're a veteran, everybody's going to want to hire you. Congratulations, you'll make six figures. That's what success looks like. And I think that's the fundamental breakdown is Adam Peters is not where Carla Hutcherson is or Brandy or anybody else. We're all different in where we're at in our journey. We don't all need the same things. I didn't need someone to teach me how to write a resume. I needed somebody to open my eyes to, you're not a fit for corporate America. Maybe you should take a risk on yourself and go try and build businesses, right? I've talked to a lot of veterans over the last 2 years since I started doing this. And I present weekly now at Seven Eagles Skill Bridge program, and I don't even present. It's more of a Q&A. It's just me, raw, real, and my true thoughts and feelings on how your transition is going to go when you get out from somebody who's walked a mile in your shoes. But everybody tells me nobody's opened the door to entrepreneurship for me. Nobody's told me that I could go out and do something like this if I can, learn how to manage the risk and look at it like this. And so I'm just curious, kind of you guys' thoughts and feelings on what I, that little rant I just went in. I mean, it all starts in transition. And I couldn't agree with you more. I'm working to change the education piece and the training piece that is in place to get guys and gals out.
What I have found, Adam, is I have found a lot of the guys that I've worked with and I still work with on the daily. And this is the one thing I wish more veterans would tap into, especially when you've been in combat, you've seen things, you're more apt to firearms, you're more apt to protection. A lot of the guys I'm dealing with are actually going into more building their own private security and directing school officials, schools, businesses, corporations, and also to their own police departments, because you know as well as I do, Adam, these departments, not all of them have the skills that you guys have that you can train them to do, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I hear it on the daily. I see these guys go out and do active shooting training scenarios. They do hostage protection situations, and those are the things that a lot of our civilian police officers here and a lot of civilians are not aware of how to get out of a situation. So I have found a lot of our veterans that have come out of services going into civilian life have really found their little niche of protection detail, right? I'm not talking about going back into private security, which you could do. A lot of veterans do that, but you're almost exposing yourself to some of the hardships of
The same traumas that you went through. You're not helping yourself by doing that. I had plenty of opportunities to go do the contracting stuff. The only pushback I'll give you on that is, with all the special operators getting out, like if you want to start a tactical company, good luck. It's super saturated. You're going to have a really hard time and you're probably going to hate it. But to your point, I'm a dumb infantry guy who now runs an AI company, helping businesses bring AI first to their company so they don't get left behind. In that I get to lead, I get to manage, I get to build. It's very similar to what I was doing as an infantryman in a squad, a platoon, a team, whatever it was. And so like, it just looks different and you don't know how to play by those rules yet. Right. Like, and that's like the whole point. Like they're not teaching us how to play by the rules. I think they're priming us by telling us that we're veterans. Everybody's going to want to hire us, which is not true. It's not true at all. They're not exposing us to, it's just get a job, take that first one. There's a reason that in the first 4 years that a veteran gets out, they have 2 or 3 jobs. And usually that happens in the first 2 years. And so, go ahead.
I was going to say, to your point, Adam, what I really see is it's hard to go from a military where it is structured a certain way to going into corporate America where you don't think the same way. So you're almost set up for failure in corporate America from the military, right? And so the idea of entrepreneurship where you can take charge and be in charge and be in control of something in your life is phenomenal. And I think it's a skill that, that you're highlighting that's really important.
Yeah. And along that same line, we aren't cut out for corporate America because, the stakes are so much higher in a platoon, a squad, a team, even a company or a battalion, whatever you lead at. Those systems because you've played in those systems. You started at the bottom, you've worked your way to the top. And what I see is they're not helping by saying, oh, congratulations, setting the expectation high. You should make 6 figures when you get out. Well, that's not realistic because you wouldn't take Jeff Bezos and you wouldn't put him in an infantry platoon and say, okay, now here's your op order, here's your mission. I want you to plan this, brief this, and execute this, and I don't want you to lose anybody. He's going to fall flat on his face because he doesn't know the systems. And it's the same thing when we get out. We don't know the systems that make that company run. And I say that to say that to be successful in a corporate job when you get out, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, I don't really give a fuck because it's the truth, but you have to be willing to take a step back, understand that you have all of the skills, the high leverage skills, the leadership, the problem solving, the adaptability, the list goes on and on and on, to exponentially increase how fast you climb that ladder in that company. But most veterans I talk to, they just want the 6-figure job and they're I'm way more qualified for this. Well, no, because I can put you in there and you're going to fail. You're going to fail, but you're going to learn it faster than anybody else, your civilian counterparts. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, veterans are trained. Military's trained to be survivors. You're going to find a way to survive in any situation, right? So yeah. Whether you fail or not at certain tasks in corporate America, you're going to find your way out of it. You're going to problem solve through that because that's what your brain is trained to do.
Yeah. But I get the part though, Adam, where you're going to a corporate world, you've got all these skills and you're working with someone that doesn't have half the skills you have. It could get frustrating, right? It could
100%.
no discipline. There's you probably have even a better way of running.
Yep. And nobody wants to hear you. Those are the frustrations. You're leading in rooms of people who don't want to be led, where mediocrity is the standard, and that's not a standard that you're used to. And that, look, I'm here to advocate for that. That is the truth. That's why I push entrepreneurship so hard, particularly with AI and everything else. I'm launching my own mastermind. In fact, by the time this episode's live, that whole program should be live, teaching people how I leverage AI and automation to do everything that's setting me free, to not have to deal with those things in corporate America, where you're leading in rooms where mediocrity is the standard and no one wants to be led. It's just nobody wants to hear you. I want to share all of that information with people so that they can at least have a framework for how to free themselves from the same thing. So I totally agree with you.
And I'm a firm believer you're in control of whatever you do, Adam.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter if you're in corporate world or you're entrepreneur and you're doing your own thing. I, as an entrepreneur, always said to my team, if there's something I can be doing better, please let me know.
100%.
And I also told them, look, if you can find a job and make more money and the skills I've given you, you make yourself better and you own your own company, I've done my job.
Yes.
I'll miss them. I'll love them because I miss them. But I've done my part as a leader to get them to the next level, right?
Yeah.
So, as an entrepreneur, that's the one difference between us and the corporate world. We call the shots. We do what we want to do. If we don't like it done a certain way, we change it. And those are the things right there that I think the veterans have a one-up on people like me that are not veterans, because they're more disciplined, the skills there, you're not afraid to confront situations. Where we're doing, the HR thing, we're trying to keep everybody happy and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I never did that.
I'm not an HR person. I don't like that.
I was one of these people that if I didn't like something, I didn't do it. If I liked it, I went for it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the veterans that want to be the entrepreneurs, they get it there and they make it happen and they do it. Just like you're saying right now, you're making it happen. It's not easy.
No.
But
and we don't want to sell anybody short. There are veterans out there who are part of corporate America. They're CEOs. They're doing a great job running companies. I mean, we don't want to take away from that. I wish I had some off the top of my head that I could name, but it's something that, if you're driven to do it, you will do it.
100%.
The mass majority is probably not going to do that.
Well, so let's open up this can of worms, and particularly with your expertise, Carla, there's a lot of problems. You said the VA is finally coming around to mental health treatment. Now, somebody like me who joined in 2003 and didn't get out till 2015, I legitimately saw, mentors lose their careers and get kicked out for getting mental health treatment. So how do we, because I haven't figured out the answer to this. Like, it's one thing for me to go to Peru and do ayahuasca and have this huge, enlightening epiphany and change my life, lose 100 pounds, build everything, start this show, get the AI company, lead people to plant medicine retreats. But how do you advise your clients and the people that you work with to see asking for help as not a weakness, but as, genuinely, I think the strongest thing that you can actually do is recognizing, realizing, and accepting that you need help, and then being able to ask for it?
Well, I'm a big believer in whole body health, like whole healing. Like, we can't be physically healthy and not be mentally healthy. It's all part of taking care of yourself. And so mental health care is just one more step to being wholly fit.
Yeah.
And so I really want to encourage people, don't look at it as, oh, I'm big and fit, but my mind's over here, and that's not important. It's so important to being the best that you can be, is to be not only physically fit, but mentally fit. And so getting help is one of the best things that you can do. It's like, if you're going to go to the gym, why would you not go get mental health care? I mean, those two things need to be hand in hand. And physically fit is so good for your mental health. But if you're not acknowledging your mental health, you're missing the boat.
Yes.
So, there's such a connection between the two. And so I really want to drive that home, that it's just a part of your own self-care, is really taking care of your mental health. It's not a weakness. If you go to the doctor and get your blood work and you get your annual physical, why would you not go get mental health care to deal with things that people haven't seen or dealt with? Military is exposed to so many things the rest of us don't even know. We have no idea, what you guys woke up to in the middle of the night, or fighting, and all these different things that go on. And why would we not want you to visit with someone and talk to them about that and get it out? Because if you're just keeping all that in, it's going to blow up somewhere.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'll tell you, Adam, it's people like you, the veterans, they're talking about what we're talking about right now, that's going to open the door for other veterans. I don't care what anybody says. It takes one conversation to make another veteran feel comfortable. And you know as well as I do, it's a brotherhood. So when you surround yourself around these guys, you're holding each other accountable like you are in action. You're holding them accountable at home. There is a brotherhood there, and you start to see people open up whenever you're able to show your vulnerability, right?
Well, I'll tell you too, along that same line, it's actually healing for me when those folks who resonate with what I'm saying reach back out to me and say, hey man, thank you for putting to words what I couldn't put to words, or thank you for inspiring me to get off my ass and change some things. Or, like I said, I started this with the idea that the path back to purpose was entrepreneurship, but really I started this because I was losing 3, 4, 5, 6 buddies a month to suicide. And I got so pissed with the last one, I put my fist through a wall, which is the first time I've done that in 15 years or more. And I got sick of the Facebook groups where they just, we got to do something to end the 22 a day, but nobody gets off their ass and does anything. And I was like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if a podcast, and I don't have great download numbers. There's a lot of things that I could be doing better to get those numbers up. But like, this has become cathartic for me because I get to have conversations like this. I get to understand more about myself. I get to test my philosophies, right?
It's your therapy in a way.
It really is. And so that leading to my next question, I didn't mean to cut you off, Brandy, but it's just I need to say that like, by me being vulnerable and putting myself out there where I was scared that people were going to judge me through some childhood trauma I had to get over, what I actually discovered is that it actually heals me even more. It's not the opposite of that where I'm getting shredded. And look, there's people that hate what I have to say. There are those people, but those people that hate what I have to say hate it because they know it's true and don't have the discipline to do anything about it.
Well, I look at it too. When you're in the combat field, you don't care what anybody's feelings are. You're there to do your job, right? Yep. So Adam, do your job. Do your job, what you're doing right now, and keep reaching out to people. We have always said, if we change one life, if we have one follower, one person that hears our message, and it keeps them from doing something so desperate and from them not recognizing their own worth, we've done our part.
Yes. Absolutely. Because every life counts. And so one life is a win. And what we have to understand and what people have to understand is depression, anxiety, PTSD, they're all treatable. We don't have to live with them in the dark. We don't have to be in the dark because they're so treatable. If we're doing the right things, and whether it's a combination of medication and therapy, or starting with therapy and then maybe adding one, or whichever path you go to, do something because it's so treatable, which means suicide is preventable 100 times over. It can be prevented. We have to get in there and do the work. We have to acknowledge it. And when we're not acknowledging it, that's why we're losing lives.
And so I think, the cool thing about Carla and I, Adam, is I suffer from depression. I've had those moments where I laid in bed and didn't want to get out. I've had those moments where I go to the closet and I'm so overwhelmed with what to wear for the day, which sounds so stupid and so simple, that I just want to get back in bed. I've had those moments where I have anxiety because I don't want to be in a big crowd of people. I've had those moments, and it's okay to have those moments, because I found that when I have those moments and I'm able to share it with people like Carla or people that are going through the valley, when you deal with someone else that's depressed, Adam, and someone that's not depressed or ever been depressed, it's so hard for them to realize that we've got this place way down deep that we've got to pull ourselves out of. And it doesn't happen with a simple therapy session. Yeah. And Carla's right when she says it. You have to be willing to talk to someone and open up, but you also have to be willing to say, hey, Brandy, maybe your levels are off and maybe we need to put you on some medication to get you back to where you need to be. I'm okay with that. When you get to that point where you can accept that and you can start going, okay, I need myself to be better, because not that I want to be bad for anybody else, but I'm bad for myself. Mm-hmm. It is a whole game changer for people.
You gotta look in the mirror. You gotta have the conversation with the person who's staring back at you in the mirror. And look, I've been there too, overwhelmed with what do I even wear? There's a reason I wear board shorts and a tank top. Like it just, there's a system in place. And here's the deal, part of the overwhelm of what do I wear, or, I look very different. I have long hair, a long beard, tattooed from head to toe, and
Love it.
I choose to wear a tank top and shorts. I used to think that people wouldn't take me serious or see me as professional. I now know that's not the case, and I don't really change from the discovery calls with potential clients in the AI company to delivering whatever system that they want from us. This is how I show up, and I get a lot of respect for it, which is completely the opposite of the narrative I had built in my own mind for that. And I think leaning into who you actually are and really defining that is where it has to start, and that's the opportunity that none of us are given when we get out. And so, Carla, for you, I want to talk about, I've not really done any traditional therapy, if you will. I do a lot of kind of self-monitored therapy. I have some people who are licensed therapists that I don't pay money to. That's kind of an ethical gray area that I talk to work through my own stuff. I do a lot of, I use cannabis, so I do a lot of internal reflection intentionally with getting high at night or whatever. But what can therapy look like? Because I was under this notion, like you said at the beginning of this, like, hey, I don't want to go lay on a couch. I don't want to pour my soul out to a stranger who can't possibly understand the experiences I've had. And that's completely opposite of what actually happens. So what can therapy look like? Run the gamut for us.
So I'm going to start with the therapeutic relationship, right? So let's say you go to your insurance or you go to the VA and they set you up with a counselor, and there's not a good connection there. Like, you don't feel comfortable with their methods. You don't feel comfortable with their personality, whatever it is. Don't stay with that person.
That's tip one.
Right? Let's
Simple.
focus on finding, because if you don't find that right relationship, your therapy is going to be ineffective, right? So that's the very first thing, is don't just settle because you walk into someone's office. If I go to a doctor's office and I get a yucky feeling, I'm not going back, right? So I want the best to take care of me. I want the one that I connect with. I want the one with the greatest, bedside manner, the one that's really going to get me and really give. And so find that style that you like. There's so many different forms and styles of therapy, so many different theories that represent how people approach therapy. And so you have to find the one that fits with your personality. And so, I focus a lot on cognitive behavioral therapy, but I'm also very kind of a little bit person-centered, because I'm going to focus on meeting you where you're at. And so you have to really find that therapist who, number one, you can relate to, and number two, you can connect with, and number three, that's got the modality that really helps you open up and allow yourself to be vulnerable.
I love that. I mean, there's so many other things too, right? You talk about whole body healing and kind of holistic healing. I'm very against pharmaceuticals if you can avoid them. I do understand they have their place, but I think overprescription, overdiagnosis is a big problem right now because there's money involved. For me, I always knew pills weren't an option. I watched buddies get on pills and turn into shells of the humans that they used to be and still try to kill themselves. One of my best friends, I found him hanging from his balcony after he called me over to come hang out, and went through that whole process with him. He's better now, thank God, but he got better through plant medicine. That's also the route I chose. And through plant medicine, I learned a lot of different modalities. Yoga actually is incredible therapy. Meditation, which comes in so many different forms. Like, it's not just sitting there crisscross applesauce and alming, right? Like, it's, for me, after I came back from Peru the first time, it was origami. Then it evolved into learning how to crochet and like some weird stuff, right?
Yes,
Like,
I love all that though.
Another big thing for me is abundance mindset. Like looking, I've been to some shitty places in the world, but looking around what it takes to run a podcast and the things that are sitting on my desk. I have more than most people in the world just sitting on my desk. Changing that perspective. One of the most powerful is a gratitude practice where I wake up in the morning, and it doesn't matter how simple they are, but 5 things that I'm grateful for really reframes your mind. And this is, I think, what we mean by therapy. Right? Like,
and those are all cognitive behavioral therapy kind of skills that's going to fall into that line of what I use in my therapy practice. All of those different things that you talked about. I want to highlight that depression is triggered. Depression, anxiety, and other mood disorders are triggered by various things. It can be genetic, it can be hormonal, it can be the way the brain is, just balanced in general, but they're medical conditions. And so for some people, they can go alternative routes.
Mhm.
People with really clinically medical situations are going to have to work with a doctor to help them kind of find the balance that works for them. But it comes from so many different directions. That's the first thing you have to figure out is what's triggering this disorder and really find the cause of it so that you're treating it appropriately, whether it's naturally or through therapy or a combination of all these different things. And usually I find a combination approach is really what works best.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more in saying that, because some things going on in my personal life, seeing you're going to have to put in the work on a level where you do have to be medicated and actually step out of your comfort zone and be pushed by the therapist to uncover the thing, the trigger, if it's not as obvious, or if you're not someone like me who changed their whole life through one ayahuasca retreat and then implemented the tools that I had learned, and then went back just now and did some more work to get some more tools and implement those. I'm not saying my route is the best route for everybody, but I am saying each route that you go comes with an immense amount of work that you have to put in. And it starts by being honest with yourself. And, I think the biggest thing I learned after my first ayahuasca retreat is I lied to myself for way too long. I lied to myself about a lot of things, about the weight, about that I've got my shit together, that I can handle it, that this is healthy. I lied to myself about so many fucking things that, I was hamstringing myself. And not until I was 38 years old and now 40 did I realize, oh man, I was approaching this all wrong,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will wait. They'll just they're coasting.
Yeah.
It's moving, and they know that something's off. They know until they have that major breaking point, and then they're so overwhelmed they don't even know where to start. I want to tell people, when you start to feel that wave coming up on you, get help then. Don't wait for that breaking point, because it's at that point when you really may not be able to do much for yourself because you're so desperate to get healing. I've had multiple suicides in my family. And depression runs in my family. And it took me a long time, Adam, to get to the point to where I said I need to be put on. My doctor said, you need to be put on medication, Brandy. And I was in so denial because addiction ran in the family. There's a lot of things that play with why people don't do certain things, right? And you have to get to that point, like you said, of saying, okay, I'm not okay, but don't wait. That's the biggest thing. Is I see a lot of people like I did. I waited until I tanked, and the doctor said, Brandy, you've been coasting. You've been just getting through the motions of life. And now you're at a point to where you got to do something about it. Don't wait to get to that point.
Well, I think there's a reason that people, we wear the mask for so long. We don't ask for help, the weakness thing we've already talked about. But there's, I think, and I'm learning this in my own life right now, on the heels of just, my last ceremony was 2 weeks ago, Thursday. So, we're pretty fresh out of this with, a very fresh mind and some perspectives. But I think really what it comes down to is everybody understands that they need to choose themselves. But what's not often talked about is when choosing yourself, that's very uncomfortable. It goes against every way you've been taught to live and, framework structures. It's also very painful. It's one of the most painful things I've ever had to do is to truly choose myself and what's best for me. It comes with a lot of guilt, a lot of resentment, not only for me but for others involved. It comes with sadness, with this element of failure, of not being enough, of letting yourself and others down. It comes with, it's a whole package deal, and I think that's the trap, right? Because the minute we choose ourselves and we start moving in that direction, it gets really, really hard and painful. And we revert back to the status quo because we want to avoid that pain and all of that, not realizing that the real growth comes with sitting with that pain and going through those things. And one of my favorite quotes ever, Jordan Peterson, the only way out is through. You have to go through that in order to grow on the other side.
100%. Healing is uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable. It's so painful. It's so painful.
But we have to get through that uncomfortableness to get to the other side, like you're talking about. And there's no other path. You can't take path B or C or D or whatever. You have to go through it. And so that's what people have to understand, is it's so important. And in general, compartmentalizing, we all do it. We're all going to compartmentalize in our brain.
Then you're never going to get rid of that, right? Like that's a part of human nature. It's just being aware that you're doing it and then addressing it before Pandora's box opens.
But also you have to not put them so far and back in those compartments that you can't reach them. Like I was trying to organize some cabinets in my kitchen, and so I was trying to order these different devices to organize. Well, some of them was going to put things so far back in the back, I was going to forget what's back there, and it was going to, eat at me later. So, you have to, when you're compartmentalizing for the sake of mental health, some of that you have to do to get to function every day, right? But you have to go back to those compartments. You have to empty them. And that's where the therapy is so helpful. We have to empty those compartments so that they can refill. And
Adam, I don't know about you, but I have found that for the longest time, doing stuff for other people filled my cup, filled my emptiness, right? But I wasn't taking care of myself. So I have learned through 50 years of living that it's okay to be selfish.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because ceremony one, this just 2 weeks ago, ceremony one, the lesson I got was in space, and I hold a lot of space for others, and I always have my whole life. I didn't realize it was at the sacrifice of my own space, and that I'm not giving myself the space that I need. I mean, that's coupled with learning that truly I am, and this is not going to make sense to anybody who knows me, but I'm a social introvert, meaning that I start my day with a full cup. And as I continue to talk to people, I slowly drain that. I need to recharge alone at night, right? I always thought it was different. I do think there's an element, these conversations do energize me, but now that I'm very clear on the pattern and like kind of how it works. But you're absolutely right. Like I was sacrificing so much, and I like to think of it these like bubbles that we walk around in, right? And like every time you hold space for somebody else, you have to sacrifice space somewhere else. And we all do it. And so our bubble shrinks, and before you know it, you're shrunk wrap and you can't move and you burn out and you're angry. And man, I'm so glad you bring this up, because this is exactly the lesson that I just got. And not that I wasn't aware of it, I was painfully aware of it. I just didn't know what to do about it. And that's where the choosing yourself comes in, and realizing that, the less space I give myself, the less space I can hold for others.
We're so used to doing stuff for other people, Adam, that's where your guilt comes in. Your guilt comes in of, well, if I'm not doing so much, my cup's not being filled up. But you're finding when you're refilling your cup with yourself and being selfish, you find you're healthy all the way around for everybody else, yourself and for everybody else, and you enjoy it more.
Well, yeah. We go back to, and one skill to deal with depression is contribution to others, right? Mm-hmm. It helps get us out of that inward focus and onto the outward focus. So that is a skill. But at the same time, you have to remember, on an airplane, the instructions are to put the mask on yourself
first
before you help the others. You got to get that oxygen in yourself to be able to give to others and have the capacity to do that.
Good point, Carl.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, people ask me all the time, what does healing look like? What does getting better look like? I mean, I don't think there's a more raw conversation on the internet about what that looks like than what we're talking about right now. The second lesson I got in second ceremony was patience with the process, patience with the pain, patience with yourself, patience with others, patience in understanding that people aren't going to understand your process, because in my case, plant medicine still really, I know it's becoming more mainstream, but it's still really taboo. It really is. Like, my parents don't necessarily understand it. They poke fun at it. They don't think that it's just not what they know, and that their mind isn't open to it. So I have to be patient in that. And it's like also understanding that like this is the route that I choose to get better or heal or just how I choose to live my life. Tuning out the noise from them. Like, how can you deny that this is not a way forward for me when you can see, I did it 2 years ago and all the changes I made then, I just did it 2 weeks ago, and I'm unpacking even more and excited to see what unlocks come from that. Like, if you're strong in knowing that you are a better person from whatever route that you choose, lean into that and don't let anybody take that away from you.
Well, people say there's, it's so funny when you become a parent. We're both parents. There's all these books and all these guides to how to do this, do it yourself. Like there is no perfect way of doing certain things or processing. If it helps you be a better person, you process things, it don't matter if anybody else around you can understand it.
Well, treatment plans are individualized. When I have a patient come in, I'm not giving them the previous patient's treatment plan, right? Each treatment plan is individualized. And so what works for one's not going to work for the other. You have to really get to know that client or that patient and really understand what is going to work for them, and then help them walk through that so that you're working together on something that's going to help drive them to the most success they can find.
I love that so much. It's so true. For you, Carla, I want to ask you, because you are a licensed therapist, and this may be controversial, I actually use AI to have therapeutic conversations. Like I identify a problem that I need to work on particularly, and I know I'm being vague, and I apologize to the audience and those listening. I also apologize to you. This is all going to come out in time, and I will explain everything. But in going through what I've been going through the last couple of weeks, I've used that to really get a lot of clarity, not only about myself, but about the situation. And it's kind of weird at first, but then you start to realize like, you just like, it's wild. It's really wild.
Adam, it's so funny because I saw some research on that. And so Brandy and I did an episode on our podcast with ChatGPT, and we were asking it questions in the moment. It gave a lot of really great advice. It did. And most of it was, kind of introductory to counseling kind of skills. And they were all very helpful. I found a lot of it very helpful. My issue is it's still about therapeutic relationships. So I think on day-to-day basis, those things that the AI can tell you are helpful to get people moving and grooving in their everyday lives. I just wouldn't replace it. I would use it in addition to.
100%. And I couldn't agree with that more. My situation is a little different. I, over the last 2 years, have unpacked a lot of things, had a lot of conversations with people about these things. So I know a lot about myself, a lot about my childhood, a lot about events. I had enough context to give the language model to kind of understand where I was coming from, to get more insights about myself. I'm not saying it's a replacement. I think that but I do think it's eliminating the barrier to entry. Some people can't afford therapy.
Absolutely. And I think rural areas, especially, I think it's a great tool because it is accessible. I love to use it as, to give my clients homework or to, enhance things that we talked about in therapy, and they can keep using that skill. I think it's great, like to help them problem solve in the moment when they're kind of stuck. Those things are really good. And so I think it's a really neat tool that I was really fearful of when it first came out. And I was thinking, this is not good for my profession, but I think it really is not bad for my profession. I think it's actually going to enhance a lot of different things.
It's a tool. It's not the answer. It's a tool. And look, I'm very meticulous about how I do it. I make sure when I do go, I literally just say I want to have a therapy session, and it comes back to me, and it's like, well, what are we working on, right? And then I tell it, like, I don't want you to coddle me. I don't want you to just make me feel good. I want to logically understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling and why I'm thinking the things that I'm thinking. And it does a really good job of keeping me kind of even keel and like playing the contrarian, but also helping myself and like seeing how I could have done things different or whatever the situation may be versus how I actually handled the situation and where I fucked up and what that caused. And it's really like, look, I may be I didn't give myself credit for a lot of years of my life, but I'm a lot more intelligent than I think anybody ever gave me credit for. And that's been a big hurdle for me, is like, I question a lot of things. I don't have a lot of confidence in decisions or in my level of understanding of things. And through this process, I've been able to really validate, like, I'm not unintelligent. I think on a very high level. And
Yeah,
I
that's amazing.
can tell you right now, if I had my company going, you'd be hired. I know that sounds. No, I'm serious though, because I can tell the way you do things. You think things through
Meticulous, yeah.
very meticulously. Not just in one thing, Adam. And everything I think you do, you put a lot of thought into that. And that's super impressive.
Well, I love when, as emotions are becoming dysregulated, using that tool to get back to baseline, I think that's so functional. I think that's a great use for AI, and I love to see it kind of play into that as people are becoming dysregulated. How can they use that to get back to baseline? What I also, and Brandy and I kind of tested this out, is when you start talking about self-harm, suicidal thoughts, all those things, it does bring you into, okay, this is bigger than AI. We need
Yep.
Call 988, get on the suicide hotline, call somebody, So it was actually, there are some, it is at least directing people to that, which would be my biggest fear, is that we're missing the boat on some of those things.
And look, I get it too. I unpacked some of my childhood to it the other night. It said this message is dangerous and inappropriate because it revolved around some things it doesn't want to talk about. I also understand you're giving these companies your data. I think you're just a fool if you don't think that they already have your data and you're really worried about that. Like, at the end of the day, I think it's from a business sense, I think you'll agree with this, Brandy, it's actually beneficial to give it all your data, because then when people start searching this out, you're going to get LLM SEO, which means you're going to get more traffic to you. That's from the business standpoint. So I really just don't give a shit about that part of it. But you're right. It does a really good job of like, hey, this problem's bigger than you can handle on your own. I have not run into that situation because I feel like I'm pretty level-headed and grounded in why I'm using it. I use it to create manifestos or documents or, running journals or whatever, which I then am vulnerable enough to send to people in my life who I respect, who I know are going to cut it to me straight. And with the most recent one I've done, it's actually moving people to kind of leverage the tool the same way that I'm doing. I just wrote a 17-page, grounded truth document that I've sent to some people who matter to me that I always go to when I'm having a hard time. And you wouldn't believe the actual support that I've gotten out of it, and like kind of the unlocks that it's gotten for some of them, and it's just incredible, like where we're at and how many tools are available to us in order to help ourselves get better. I like the AI idea for somebody who maybe is not so far gone that they need a person like you, Carla. But to at least start to introduce getting rid of the shame of, going to therapy, getting rid of that stigma that comes with that, and start making them a little bit comfortable. It, I think, has a way of then ending up leading them to maybe reaching out to you, Carla, for actual, one-on-one therapy or whatever. I just think there's so many more benefits than there are, negatives.
It just, mental health care is such a driving force to overall health. If we're healthy living, we have to address that. And we're not going to achieve our goals professionally, personally, any of those things. We're not going to achieve them if we're not looking at the whole body that way and understanding that my physical health is important, but my mental health is important. And right now we're trying to focus as a nation, I think, on being healthier. And so I think it's important that we really address the mental health side of that.
We got to do a better job, though. We've got to do a better job in every aspect, in every area, from the time these kids are little to the time they're our age. I think there's the biggest issue, is we don't, it's all rainbows and lollipops for these kids, growing up, and we don't realize these kids are struggling. And we're not putting in their heads, their minds, their bodies. Hey, if you're mentally off, you're physically going to be off. I mean, I know I am. When I'm mentally off, I don't want to work out. I don't want to eat good.
I think those two are closely tied together. I think it works the other way too. When you're not physically fit, when you're not moving your body and doing something hard, your mental health suffers.
Yeah. It's both ways, but we've got to do a better job as a nation at talking to these kids and normalizing mental health.
Why do you think we struggle so much to do a good job with this? Why do you think this seems to be like a taboo off third base topic?
I think it's generational. And I think that the younger generations are coming in and embracing it more, the understanding of the need to address it. It's really just trying to continue that shift from past generations where they described it as a point of weakness. Well, it's
Yeah.
not a point of weakness. It's a point of strength to deal with it and be, in the best mental shape that I can be in, as a point of strength. So
I couldn't agree more, because I think as a man, as a physical man, and a dangerous one who had all these skills from my time in the military, I think it teaches you a lot more about yourself and makes you even more dangerous, because you learn how to control that side of you. And I think that's, again, another Jordan Peterson-esque quote. He says a man should learn to become a monster and then learn to control it. And it's like, man, when the capacity that I have for violence is always going to be there, but now, like, really understanding how to react or respond instead of react, and assess the situation based on what I know about myself, has made me so much more dangerous.
Anger gets a bad rap, but it's a functional emotion. Without anger, we wouldn't have drive to do great things, right? So it's a functional emotion. It's just misused.
And I often tell people, Adam, I came from a very broken home. I left home when I was in 9th grade. I was never taught how to process things. I was never taught how to talk about anger. You were definitely weak if you were depressed. I mean, we didn't talk about that. It was like, suck it up and move on type personality, So I tell people, from my perspective, I'm 50 years old. And I tell people all the time, it's never too late to be healthy you, because I didn't know what a healthy me was. What I knew was what I knew, and it was not healthy. And sometimes it takes getting older and getting around people and talking about it more to go, okay, you know what? I'm a lot better than I was back then. It's my biggest thing to tell people. It's never too late to make those changes in your life.
Talk about, I want you to expand on that a little bit. So, looking back at your old self and the unhealthy self, first of all, how fast did things start to change for you? Because for me, it was pretty fast. And, like, give us some examples of where you're a better person because you chose to heal and accept the process.
Well, I can tell you, as a child growing up, you have no control of anything in your life. Everything's controlled by, the people, the authority above you, right? So I never took control. What I did was, I didn't have control. So in my 20s and 30s, even as a businesswoman, that was my control. I could control things because I was in charge. Well, guess what? It did. Having that control didn't allow me to trust.
Mm-hmm.
You can't trust the process of life. It puts you in a dark spot that is not worth enjoying. You don't want to be in a place like that. So I learned to let go of the control, because that's all I knew, right? I let go of that control, and I learned to trust. I learned to trust the people around me. I learned to trust the professionals. I learned to just trust that my life I'm making it worse than what it needs to be, because I was controlling everything around me. And a lot of that was because of the way I was raised. I felt like if I can control things, I can keep from getting hurt. I can keep from people from screwing me. I could keep a lot of things from happening, but I also found it hindered me. And I think if you let go of that control and learn to trust the process of life, allow people in that are worth being allowed in, like the Carlas in my life, then I think you find that life's much more enjoyable, and you can pass that on to someone else. Hey, you don't have to be in control of this. Not everything needs to be in your control. When you let go of it and you trust the process, I think you enjoy things more.
I think there's a balance of control. There's some things you do need to control, right? I think it's a balance of control. When it becomes unhealthy obsession with control, then that's a bad thing.
Yeah, right? For sure.
There is a form of control that allows us to build trust and to really formulate the ability to do things to the best of our ability. And so I think that's important. I think we really have to highlight the importance of community. We have to have relationships. We have to have people in our lives. We are not meant to function without that.
Yeah, I love that you're touching on this right now, because it's so important, because through this process, those relationships are going to change, and they're going to change in a big way. And you're going to start to become aware of who's good for you and who's not. And I'm telling you, that's tough. That's really tough, because you're familiar with those relationships, and those relationships are keeping you stuck.
It's uncomfortable.
Yes. But it's so uncomfortable.
Once you find, and I tell her, this is like depression. When you're down, you're down. You're in that valley. You know how icky it feels. But when you get to that mountaintop, you know how good it feels to be at the top, right? And so when you're down in that remind yourself, Adam, man, I know what it feels like to be up here, and I'm going to be up there again. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be messy. It's going to be, it's going to be unfamiliar, but that mountaintop's there.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. If you have two depressed people, they're, either partners in life or best friends or whatever, and they're both depressed, and they're keeping each other stuck in depression because they're bonded through the depression. So we have to get a healthy community around us to get us out of that hole. We have to have people get us out of that, and we have to be willing to listen to that.
Yeah. Brandy, Carla, we've come to the end of our time together. That flew by. What an amazing time it was having the conversation with you. I want people to be able to reach out to you, to see the work that you're doing, connect with you, have questions that they want answered. I don't want to play middleman. I want them to go straight to you guys. So how can they get in touch with you? How can they find you?
So you can reach out to us directly through info@mentalperk.org. You can go to our website and contact us that way, which is mentalperk.org. You can also find us if you want to listen to our podcast. We do have lots of first responders, veterans. We've had so many on our shows that are just been, they have brought so much life to a lot of these issues. So look at any major podcast site we are on. We also have a YouTube channel that you can watch us on. So we ask you to go there, and you can always comment us through those avenues as well.
I love it. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for helping me just bring light to a conversation that's not had enough for particularly the veteran first responder community, but I think in America as a whole, and really as I'm learning across the world, this is a universal problem. And so much great stuff is going to come out of this. And I can't wait for this to come out. I really appreciate your time.
Adam,
Thank you so much.
And keep doing what you're doing, Adam,
Wonderful.
because you're changing lives. I'm telling you, just hearing you talk to me today, I feel better. So I'm serious. When I say that, it's refreshing.
Yeah.
Seeing people like you walk the walk and talk the talk. And it's can be a long journey, but you're doing it, and we're proud of you.
Hey, you know what the secret is I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing. I just keep doing it. I just keep doing it. Which I think, to sum all this up, is like, just get out of your own way and take the first steps forward and see where it goes. And I promise you, man, life gets so much better when you just stop worrying about what people think of you, when you stop letting the narrative in your head control you, and when you just, try to make your own way, I guess, is really, because I really don't have a clue what I'm doing. I started this podcast trying to save veteran lives, which turned into a plant medicine partnership and a fucking AI company, and the potential. It just creates opportunity. And like I said, I don't have great download numbers, but people find me. I haven't had to reach out for guests, and I hear what you just said to me a lot. Kind of another thing I'm working on is like accepting compliments and accepting that I am worthy of the praise that has been given to me, because that's not something that I've ever been familiar or comfortable with. And so I kind of always just brush it off. So, to constantly keep getting that from, and look, full transparency, I just met Brandy and Carla an hour ago. Like, first conversation we've ever had other than, hey, I think we'd be a good fit for Pod Match. So like, that's not staged. That's very real, coming from two very successful women on this show, and so I'm grateful for the time. I'm grateful for the words, and let's not let this be the last time we have a conversation.
Let's not. And thank you for having us, Adam.
Thank you so much.
Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Mental Perk team, Brandy and Carla. Please reach out to them. All their socials will be linked below, and we'll see you guys next week with another awesome episode. Take care, everybody. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at the Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.